Hello and welcome to JRocks Pop Culture Revolution. This is episode number 27. And man, I hope everybody had a great Easter holiday this weekend. Today was Easter Sunday. And hey, did you catch our special bonus Easter episode we rolled out for you guys on the history of See's candy? I hope you enjoyed that. Well, not losing a beat, as you can see, just this week, you guys got two episodes in 1 week. Typically, we roll out our new episodes every Thursday at 8 a.m. So I'm already hard at work here recording the very next episode, which is going to be episode number 27. And what we're going to be talking about is one of my all time favorite classic horror movies, going all the way back to 1933. Of course, I am talking about this classic film, The Invisible Man. And man, we are going to get into this. As I always like to do, got my props here. I like to show you guys that I actually got the movie in preparation for doing tonight's episode. I watched the film earlier today, early in the morning. Okay, I like to get up even on the days when I don't have to go to work. Typically, Saturday and Sunday is my day off. I have a day job, but anyway, so I woke up early Easter morning, and I thought, you know what? Well, I went for everybody else to get up out of bed. I like to get an early start today. I need to watch Invisible Man. So I got up early this morning, watched this on my home Blu-ray player, and man, it brought back a lot of great memories. And also, so I want you to know I did watch the movie prepping for tonight's episode, so it would be fresh in my mind as I like to do. But I also urge you, anybody that's into classic horror films, especially those great Universal monster pictures such as the Invisible Man right here. Now, what is so great about this package? I got this on Amazon.com. You can go. I've seen it at Walmart and stuff, but man, I got a great collection here. It's got many of the Invisible Man sequels. Let's see on this package here. You get the original Invisible Man film that we're going to be talking about from 1933, the one that started it all, folks. And then there was The Invisible Man Returns, The Invisible Woman, okay, The Invisible Agent, um, The Invisible Man's Revenge, and another one of these classic Invisible Man films I've seen, which has a bit of a comedy spin, is of course Abbott and Costello meets The Invisible Man. So I wanted you guys to see this because we're just getting started, obviously, here with The Invisible Man. We got so many other episodes we're going to be doing, but because there's so many Invisible Man films, and I've got them in this great collection. There's going to be future episodes on the other Invisible Man films, so stay tuned for that. But we're talking tonight specifically about the original Invisible Man movie that started all. Like I said, going back all the way to 1933. Okay, so let's get into it, folks. The Invisible Man, the classic 1933 Universal Pictures horror movie, was released on November 13th, 1933, to be exact, folks. The movie starred Claude Rains, who was a British born actor throughout his career. He was nominated for a total of 4 Academy Awards, 4 different times. So, man, you know, there are many people that are great actors that never even got nominated once, but 4 times, man, this cat must have been some kind of actor. And we're going to get into that because as far as his acting goes, what was really amazing and made his acting stand out so much in the Invisible Man movie is the fact that much of the film is Claude Rain as the Invisible Man. Um, we don't really you see parts of him on the screen if you know what I mean, but much of it is his deep voice. His and the voice is so memorable, and it's an interesting character because for that reason alone, whoever you get to play a role, they would need to have a strong kind of voice like that because um, throughout the movie, The Invisible Man, parts of them are shown, parts of them kind of fade away, if you know what I mean, not totally visible. And so typically, when you watch a movie, you're watching the character, the actor, the person on the screen, because the type of character of Invisible Man is, you're really focused on the voice more than anything, and it's for that reason alone, it's a very different type of movie. But we got to remember, folks, in 1933, that was really the start of when Universal started having these great classic monster horror movies. It was really when filmmaking was in its infancy. I mean, you got to remember The Invisible Man. If you haven't, for anybody seen it, this is not a color film, folks. Back in 1933, when they made movies, color didn't exist at that point, so everything was in black and white. And it made movie making very, very different. And so we got to take all that into consideration. Said The Invisible Man, Rains played the title character of the Invisible Man, also known as Dr. Jack Griffin. Okay. The movie, of course, was based on the 1897 novel The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, who was a famous science fiction writer at the time. So again, we're talking tonight about a classic black and white horror movie from 1933. It's based on this book by H.G. Wells. The movie doesn't get made till 1933, but it's based on a book that, get this, folks, came out in, again, let me see when it say, 18, the movie was based on the novel, which originally came out in 1897. Folks, can you believe that? And so we're going to also talk tonight on how the movie was very different from the book, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. It said so. The addition, in addition to the Invisible Man, H.G. Wells, the guy who wrote the novel, the original story, he also wrote the novel War of the Worlds, another great legendary kind of science fiction film based on another H.G. Wells story that was first a book and then turned into a movie. So again, very much in the early days of movie making. That's how back then they got a lot of ideas for making movies. If it was a great book, if there was an interesting story, hey, because again, in making movies such as The Invisible Man here, you're taking a story that was simply a book, a novel. And it's one thing to read a story and really be into the story, but it's literally a story on paper, if you will. When they turn a book, a novel like this, into a motion picture, I mean, it's a major thing because you're bringing somebody's story to life. You're taking it off of the literary paper, if you will, and you're turning somebody's story into a reality. You were able to see it on the big screen. You're bringing the characters to life. You read something in the book, and if it's a good enough story, you can really maybe get into a story. But it's one thing maybe to read like the novel The Invisible Man, but to see the picture, okay, finally, you get to see what the characters look like. Does the story in the movie match the story of the books? Oftentimes, Hollywood takes certain liberties when they turn a novel into a screenplay, into a movie. They take certain liberties with it, and many people like that. Many people don't like it. I say, whatever works. Movie making is a particular kind of art, but see, as a moviegoer myself, that's what I love is. I mean, I depending on the subject, I read. I read a lot of books. I mean, like I love to read biographies on famous celebrities and people that I grew up, idolizing. But I'd read books, in school, obviously, when you're growing up and stuff. But I was never one for like reading books just for the hell of reading books. It had to be something that I was into. But I'm a big fan. If you got a good story, a good novel, of turning it into a movie and bringing it to life. So I'm there with a movie like this, and again, by the time The Invisible Man comes out in 1933, Universal is well on their way of becoming like the major studio for the classic monster movies. I mean, they're classic monster movies all these years later. In 1931, though, like when stuff like Dracula originally came out, and then Frankenstein, then The Invisible Man followed. Um, Movie making was very, very much in its infancy. They were learning kind of how to make movies as they started. I mean, and you got to remember when they really, when movie making was really in its infancy, you got to remember, folks, that first before they you saw anybody even talk in a movie, you had what they called the silent film era. And so, like, Dracula was one of the, from 1931, the Universal Dracula movie, the original Dracula movie. You got to understand, it's very interesting to go back and watch that now because that's one of the that's one of the movies that's probably got the very little dialogue throughout the whole movie. Uh, Many of the scenes in the original Dracula movie, you will see where Dracula's on the screen, but he's not interacting with too many other people. He's kind of talking to the screen. He's talking kind of to himself out loud. Um, Very little interacting with a lot of other actors. So I mean, you get through most of the film, and it's not a lot of dialogue. Not, I mean, they didn't have to do too much writing in the original Dracula, for example. But even by the time Universal kind of mastered the horror monster movie kind of thing that became their thing they were known for. Um, Even by the time they have a movie like Abbott and Costello meets The Invisible Man, okay, now they're mixing the horror movie franchise with comedy, and they're bringing comedy and horror together, which was a really unique thing. But okay, so by the time they make Abbott and Costello meets the Invisible Man, okay, now that film is not in black and white. It's by the time that comes out, the movie's colorized. It's in color. Okay, so that brings another aspect. Also, if you compare like Abbott and Costello meets Invisible Man to the original Invisible Man. Okay, not only is it in color now, but you also mix in comedy and horror, which was a real kind of new thing at that time when Abbott and Costello meets Invisible Man came out. Another thing between those two different films, by the time Abbott and Costello meets The Invisible Man comes out, um, if you watch the movie, there's a lot more dialogue, a lot more acting going on in the movie. It's not so much like Dracula, where there's not a whole lot of interacting with other actors. Um, and so movie making is like by the time Abbott and Costello meets The Invisible Man comes out, it's take a huge giant leap forward. And movie making really was at an all kind of all time high peak, if you know what I mean. Um, and technology had really advanced the special effects. I mean, for some of these monster movies they were making, especially Universal Studios, they had special makeup departments. They had people that was all they did was they would design the makeup, and and it was just a big production behind the scenes to make these classic horror movies. And man, now we all these years later, we have fun looking back on these great classic horror movies and talking about how great they really were. Now, okay, it says, okay, so Dr. Jack Griffin, aka the Invisible Man, discovers a way to become invisible. He abuses the power, which drives him crazy. Jack Griffin kind of goes slightly mad, if you will, because he's all assumed with his, he becomes very corrupt and abusing the power to turn invisible. And he spirals quickly into a very, excuse me, folks. Excuse me. But he turns into a very violent, deranged kind of character. And throughout most of the movie, you see how he's abusing this power, and you see how it ends up corrupting him. Now, one of the classic Universal monster movies, along with along with Dracula and Frankenstein, is The Invisible Man. And then, of course, you have The Mummy. Um, and so these are all classic horror movies now, but these are some of the earliest Universal monster movies. So um, they were quite on a winning streak, if you will. At this time, started with Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, and then came The Invisible Man in 1933. And we got to really kind of talk about the fact that The Invisible Man marked a breakthrough in movie making and and special effects, especially in 1933 at that point. Um, and we should also note that talking about the fine actor Claude Rains, who played the Invisible Man, um, it was his film debut. Could you imagine that as an actor, this is the very first film role you get? Man, what a lucky break he got. Talk about a little bit about that. Um, and so again, because I mentioned at the top of the show today, because Claude Rains is barely seen in the film, his performance in the film relies heavily on voice acting, body language, relies on people standing in for him. Claude Rains' chilling theatrical voice became iconic from you know the making of the Invisible Man to all the other movies that he would do in the future throughout his career. His voice, he became known for that iconic voice more than anything else, and it's just kind of really an amazing thing. When you're an actor, people talk mostly about this guy for what an iconic sounding voice he had. I mean, and I think that's because the fact that his very first role was the Invisible Man, and so when parts of his body is disappearing, and you can't, and he's the Invisible Man in this movie. There's good chunks of the film where you don't even see him. It just kind of this presence floating in the air, where a lot of times you're not even seeing a face, but you're just hearing like a voice talking, and so that kind of gets in your head, and you find yourself not even so focused on the floating invisible man, just like, oh, what is that? Who's talking? And so it really gets your attention, folks. Um, and now the movie, The Invisible Man, really touches on a couple of key issues. Okay, it touches on um, power corrupts, the fact that okay, solutions and versus madness, science versus morality. So again, it's one of those things where he discovers he discovers how to make himself invisible. Now, just because you can do something, do you do it? Is it a matter of are you a moral person versus an immoral person? Does morality even matter to you? So the film kind of touches on all of that, and it does it in a really unique way. Um, Now, actors were give you kind of little kind of behind the scenes on how they did some of these special effects. It said the Invisible Man had breakthrough special effects for its times. Actors wore dark velvet suits, um, filmed against black bandages. It said the film was double exposed um, to remain visible. So, in order to kind of see what they wanted you to see on the screen, um, they would double expose the film and would give that kind of effect. Um, Complex compositioning technique created floating clothes and objects. So again, many parts of the film where you don't even see the guy's face. You see the bandages and he's kind of floating around in there. Parts of his body. And so a lot of these special effects were being used during this time to kind of create that technique. Like I said, the techniques used in the Invisible Man movie in 1933 influenced visual effects for several more decades. So again, like I said, in 1933, they're learning. Movie making is really in its infancy. They're learning how to do it as they go, and kind of learning as they go. Now, um, okay, the bandaged look of Dr. Jack Griffin became one of the most recognizable horror images of all time. Again, let's kind of look at the packaging of my DVD here. You see how kind of looks like a mummy, a corpse or something. Got that little kind of invisible face. He's bandaged up. You have to just kind of don't even show you the whole image, but just look at the face and most people, if you're a movie buff or into pop culture or these horror films, most people see that and they know it's the Invisible Man. That's the point I'm trying to make here, folks. That is kind of a big part of the legacy of this film, just the imagery and the special effects. Um, so let's talk a little more about that. Um, so again, the as far as kind of some major differences between the book and the movie. It said the movie leaned more towards horror than like being a psychological thriller, where again, because Universal was very much into, um, it became their thing. One of the things they became known for, Universal Studios, was making these classic like horror movies. Um, and then that's why, like every Halloween, people really into the horror. They really love to Halloween. Okay, I'm going to watch all these great horror movies. I'm going to, stay up late watching. They're going to have like a horror movie marathon or something. Um, that became a tradition once, they had made enough of these movies. Characters like the Invisible Man, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy. It spawned other horror movie franchises, and so many of these horror movies had sequels, and so it became the horror movie franchise became a very very big thing. It still is today in 2026, but not like it was back in the 1930s. I think the reason for that is reason these films are called classics because that's exactly what they are. You can see the difference in technology as far as movie making. Even just down to a lot of times now, even when they make horror films, they mostly are like colorized, and that does make a difference. But some films even look at something like Young Frankenstein came out in 1974. That's another film that kind of mixed classic horror movie and combined it with comedy, and that made another classic one of these films. But director Mel Brooks, who did Young Frankenstein, he specifically chose to shoot the film in black and white. Originally the studio wanted him to do it in color, but he got his way. Let's just say he made sure that it was a black and white film, and that's just because he liked that classic black and white look. And I think Young Frankenstein had been a colorized film, it would have probably been just as successful, but it would have been a very much of a different film. I think just having it black and white gave it that kind of classic horror movie element, and that's why Mel Brooks did it. And then also in the movie, Dr. Jack Griffin was more openly insane and dangerous. Throughout a lot of the movie, he's getting off on scaring other people with his being the Invisible Man. A lot of people start saying that the Invisible Man is a hoax, and he's getting off on trying to prove to people he's not a hoax, and he like starts shooting people, starts you know just kind of going crazy and totally insane. And so um, much of the movie is him just kind of getting off on you know okay, he's discovered how to become invisible. It corrupts him, and he really does go madly, insane, loses his mind, and he doesn't try to. He's not trying to hide it or deny it. He's just being the crazy person that he is. Dr. Jack Griffin. Whereas I guess in the book came out in 1897. It's much more of a kind of a psychological thriller, and that's the main difference between the book and the movie. So keep that in mind. And then kind of like I was just kind of saying, the biggest difference they said between the book and the movie is the movie's a little more darker. It's got a little more dark humor, um, and it's got more theatrical villainy. Like I said, he kind of is this mad scientist gone nuts, and he's getting off the fact that he's invisible and he's scaring people to death, and that seems to be a thing that he really you know, loved doing. He didn't really mind that he was going insane. I mean, he didn't try to hide it. And there were a couple people that Dr. Jack Griffin knew in the film, and they figured out he was the Invisible Man. They were trying to keep it from other people, but it got to a point where they just couldn't keep the secret any longer, if you know what I mean. Now, before we wrap up tonight's episode, and this has been a real fun episode to do, um, um, I thought you guys should know a little bit about the director of the film. Um, the Invisible Man was directed by James Whale. Um, and let's have a few words now on James Whale and how he helped to perfect classic horror film making in that he also directed other classic Universal horror films, such as Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein, and of course, this film, The Invisible Man. Um, Wales was one of Hollywood's first openly gay directors at a time when that was not the norm. In the 1930s, while it was not heavily publicized, many insiders knew that Wales was indeed gay. Now, we bring all this up because there's a lot of kind of controversy. As legendary of a director as James Whale, there's a little bit of a controversy on surrounding his death. And this is kind of, I thought, would be an interesting way to kind of tie up tonight's episode, but we definitely kind of should mention it. So while Wales was very much openly gay, it wasn't heavily publicized, like I said, but he started to later in life have a lot of serious health issues. One being that he suffered a very serious stroke, and he after suffering the stroke, he had all kinds of health ailments, and he wasn't able to work, and because of that, he was a very lonely man too, and he started to suffer from depression and from being lonely, and he was very much depressed, a large part due to his ailing health. In fact, the controversy surrounding James Whale's death is the fact that it was believed very much to be a suicide. So this is what we were able to find out about the controversy surrounding his death. It said following a serious stroke, when Wales died on May 29th, 1957, he was found dead at the bottom of his home swimming pool, where he had drowned in the pool. Wales left a note behind speaking about his poor health, and his death was believed by many Hollywood insiders was considered to be a suicide. I don't believe that it was ever officially declared a suicide, but because of a note that was found at the scene, where he was drowned in his own home swimming pool, many people had suspected the death might have indeed been a suicide. Again, that was never officially confirmed, but next time you watch the Invisible Man, I want you guys to kind of consider all that went into the making of this great landmark, a classic horror movie. And again, get a load of that image, because that image of the Invisible Man, just the face, is really became a big part of a legacy of the film. It's one of the classic images of one of these great horror characters. Um, Very much like you see a photo of Frankenstein or Dracula or the Mummy or the Wolfman. There's no mistaking what that image of the Invisible Man is. And Claude Rains did a great job of playing the role of the Invisible Man. In fact, so much that he maybe is remembered most for this particular role, which happened to be his very first role. Um, and again, his voice became so iconic. He became known for that voice because the fact that many of the scenes in The Invisible Man, you're not even seeing him on the screen. You're just hearing his voice. And so, and I wanted you guys to know again about the director James Wales and how involved he was in the Universal Studios world and helping to create these classic horror movies that Universal became known for. Um, I hadn't seen this film in so many years, and so, like I said, in doing these episodes, whatever the topic is that we're going to talk about, especially if it's a movie or something like that, I haven't seen in years. If I'm gonna make a point to watch it again. I got a huge movie collection, folks. So I can tell you right now, a lot of the way I come up with ideas to do the episodes is I look around and I look on my my DVD shelf collection and I see what I have to talk about. And so this was a real fun episode to do. This is going to be episode number 27. It's going to be rolling out on Thursday, April 9th at 8 a.m. on the FireRock TV network. I want to thank my good friend Tom Collier and all the people at FireRock Music Group for putting us over there on their official network. We've enjoyed being part of the FireRock family. I used to do this metal show with Tom. I miss doing the show with Tom, but me and Tom remain great friends. And in the future, we will work together. There's that. And next time, okay, folks, I'm already going to let you know what I have in plan for episode number 28. When we get together to do that next week, it's going to be on a classic 1966 animated Flintstones cartoon called A Man Called Flintstone, and that's going to be a great, fun one to do because if you watched episode 25 that we just rolled out this last Thursday, which was on our favorite classic TV theme songs. One of the songs on my list was the Flintstones TV theme, and we found out there were actually two versions of the Flintstones theme song. You can go on our Facebook page and hear the two different versions for yourself. So I thought, okay, since the Flintstones theme song made my list, let's now talk about one of the Flintstones animated movies. That's going to be fun to talk about. So I'll see you guys again next week. I am Jason JRocks Houston, and you've been listening and watching episode number 27 of JRocks Pop Culture Revolution. And we're talking all evening about the Invisible Man. So if you haven't seen this in years or you've never seen it, go out and get this. I got this on Amazon. And you guys, if you're anybody that's a fan of horror movies, you will love this. Bye for now. See you next time. Take care.